This footage was taken a short time before police would receive a chilling phone call from Courtney Clenney describing how her boyfriend was bleeding out. But what led to this horrific scene? How does an attractive OnlyFans success story with a 2 million follower fan base and a bright future come to be the subject of a chilling murder case? Before we start, we would like to send our sincere condolences to the loved ones of Christian Obumseli, who fell victim to the abominable act described in this case. Courtney Clenney was born on the 21st of April 1996 in Austin, Texas. She had a privileged upbringing, living in a nice neighborhood and attending a private school. At the age of 13, Courtney discovered her love for drama, theater, and dance. She would approach her parents about beginning dance lessons, and they would enthusiastically support her. Courtney was a naturally gifted girl at both dance and theater, and the lessons she took required her to maintain good fitness, and this soon led Courtney to developing a passion for exercise and body image. By her late teens, she was competing in both regional and state fitness competitions, and before long, Courtney was picked up by EHP Labs as a sponsored athlete. After graduating high school, Courtney attended a private college where she studied hard to become a personal trainer. And when she had done so, she went to Los Angeles to focus on growing a fan base on social media. Taking on the name Courtney Tailor on social media, Courtney began innocently enough with her social media posts featuring workouts and fitness tips. However, as time went on, these posts would soon grow increasingly more risque. Courtney noticed that pictures she posted in swimsuits and in clothing that was more revealing, she would get more engagement and increase her follower count more quickly. And using this to her advantage, it did not take long before Courtney had amassed a following of more than 1 million fans on Instagram alone. With this level of success on social media, Courtney soon had companies knocking at her door asking for sponsorship deals for her to promote their products. If one were to look briefly at her Instagram, you would see many sponsored posts, from tooth whitening to activewear to even shaving tools, amongst her regular posts sharing her glamorous lifestyle. Brands love to use Courtney as their promoter, and all the more as her popularity continued to grow. Given all of this, it is little surprise that when OnlyFans became a legitimate platform to further monetize her appeal, she was quick to sign up. Leveraging her large social media following, she was able to achieve success on OnlyFans, gaining thousands of subscribers almost immediately. Indeed, it seemed as if there was no stopping Courtney and her popularity as OnlyFans grew, and her Instagram reached over 2 million followers. She was still in her early 20s. It could certainly be said that Courtney had well and truly established herself as an influencer, though she still described herself as a fitness model. In the year 2020, Courtney announced to the world that she was in a new romantic relationship, as her social media posts began to regularly feature her boyfriend, named Christian Obumseli, who was best known to his friends as Toby. Toby was born and raised in Plano, Texas. He attended Plano East Senior High School before studying communications at Texas Tech University. Toby was known as a compassionate guy with a kind and caring nature. It was his kind smile and boyish charm that had first attracted Courtney to Toby after the two had been introduced through mutual friends. Given her popularity and status, Courtney had regularly drawn the attention of men, but she found many of these men rather egotistical, and it was something that she found unflattering. But Toby came across differently. He took the time to get to know the real her, instead of treating her like a means to further his own popularity. Toby was himself quite successful in his own right, owning a successful consulting company and making a substantial income as a cryptocurrency trader. Soon after the two met, Courtney and Toby would soon make their relationship official, and both had announced on their social media feeds that they were together, and it was filled with cute couple shots as they wined and dined together. Toby began to dress in the latest designer clothing as a way to match his new love, who was already accustomed to the finer things in life. And after just a few short months, the two would move in together in a new luxury penthouse apartment in Florida. Between his income as an investor and entrepreneur, as well as her OnlyFans income, the couple were able to fund a rather lavish lifestyle, often dining at fancy restaurants and driving in luxury cars. From all appearances, Courtney and Toby were the perfect fit for each other. But their relationship was not as perfect behind closed doors as it appeared online. In fact, even when they went out in public, friends of theirs could tell that something didn't seem quite right between the couple. You see, Courtney Clenney, the intelligent, all-American personal trainer, was having trouble separating from her online persona, Courtney Tailor, the seductive and popular fitness model. Rather than treating her online work as a job, Courtney seemed to blend these two identities together until they were virtually indistinguishable from each other. She would be out late partying most nights of the week and soon became a familiar face at the nightclubs in and around Miami. She had taken to drinking for some time now, but it was at this point that it started to become a problem. Courtney received 2 DUIs, the second leading to 3 days in jail. Courtney's behavior was not only affecting her life. When she would drink, Courtney would become increasingly more violent. This caused her to yell and curse at her boyfriend Toby when she was intoxicated, which was becoming much of the time. She would even drag him out of dinners with friends and clubs and social events and scream at him, accusing him of seeing other women.
And you know you're toxic.
Yeah. Like in my life, I don't like anybody to tell me what to do.
Yeah, so you only want him to tell you what to do in the bedroom. Other than that, you don't want him to tell you anything.
Right. No, that's exactly it. Yes.
So that sounds like you're a control freak with your relationships.
It was around this time that Courtney began to appear in podcast interviews, and she even went so far as to proudly describe herself as a toxic girlfriend. It was clear that she took lightly the way she had treated Toby. As time went on, friends noticed yet another particularly disturbing trait of Courtney's fights with Toby. She would often become physical, with Courtney pushing Toby around and slapping him in the face. Toby would resist the attacks and would grab Courtney by her arms in an attempt to stop the blows. Toby always seemed to be attempting to de-escalate the confrontations by telling Courtney to calm down, but this only served to ramp her anger up further. In one such instance, friends found Toby at the bottom of a set of stairs in a club after Courtney had dragged him off to accuse him of looking at another woman. This is what we know from the way the couple acted in public. We can only imagine what it must have been like behind closed doors. What we do know is that police were called multiple times to their apartment as neighbors called complaining about their fights. Sometimes the fight would be over by the time the police arrived, in which case both Toby and Courtney would deny any problems. In other instances, the officers would have to physically separate the two. On one occasion, police documented that they had seen several bruises on Courtney's arms and legs, and on another occasion, neighbors complained that they saw Courtney pushing Toby around in the elevator lobby. In the 3-month period after the pair had moved into their new apartment, police had been called 13 times for domestic disturbances. It had gotten so bad that the staff of the building were in the process of evicting the couple due to the disturbances and their fights and the problems it caused for other residents. As the romance between Toby and Courtney deteriorated, so did their work relationship. Toby was helping Courtney with her OnlyFans account, managing her schedule and assisting with photo shoots. Courtney paid him a portion of her earnings, and she also covered the cost for their apartment and expenses. Initially, Courtney seemed to be enjoying buying Toby expensive gifts like designer clothes and other experiences. And after particularly bad fights, she would often apologize to Toby with such gifts. After one fight where Courtney demanded that Toby move out and threw all of his suitcases off the balcony of their apartment in a fit of rage, the next day, to make up for what she had done, she gave Toby a full set of Louis Vuitton luggage, laughing at her own self-described toxic girlfriend behavior. Over time, they became known as one of those on-again, off-again couples, breaking up and then reconciling week to week. As with many toxic relationships, their violent fights would usually be followed by a calm period. They would go back to posting their travel experiences or flashing their designer accessories, and things appeared to settle down between them. During these times, they seemed as in love with each other as they had been when they first met. Friends of Toby would take these opportunities to ask if he was okay. They would ask him why he didn't just leave her, telling him that he didn't deserve to be beat on all the time. During these conversations, Toby would defend Courtney, saying she was only acting like that when she was drinking or stressed out, and he would claim that she was actually really nice when you got to know her. He was patient with her and believed that he could help her get through this difficult period in her life. But friends close to the couple noticed that Courtney started complaining about Toby wanting money from her. She would say that he wasn't paying his way, that whatever she did, it was never enough, and that he had become addicted to the lifestyle she was paying for. She appeared to be resentful about this and even contacted her accountant about cutting him off from the share of her earnings that Toby was currently receiving. It didn't take long for the cracks in their relationship to grow, and it was becoming clear to Toby that their relationship was not working. So in March of 2022, Toby decided to call it quits once and for all and move out. Toby wasn't resentful, rather he was a forgiving guy who genuinely cared about Courtney. He kept in touch with her, checking to make sure that she was okay, and visiting the dogs the couple had shared. He would often go back to the apartment to spend time with her, claiming that they were just friends and he didn't want things to end badly with her. Even once Toby had decided their relationship was over for good, he wouldn't say a bad word about Courtney, telling friends she was just going through a hard time and that it would all come right soon, and that he was genuinely happy for her. On April 3, 2022, Courtney invited Toby to the apartment they had once shared. Around 1:15 p.m., Toby took the dogs for a walk and picked up some lunch for himself and Courtney from Subway. After the walk, he was seen entering Courtney's apartment around 4:30 p.m. We have no way of knowing what precisely happened next, but we do know this. At 4:57 p.m., the police received a 911 call from Courtney stating that she needed an ambulance for her boyfriend who had been stabbed.
Christian left the apartment at 1:15 p.m. and returned about 3 hours later.
At 4:33, Clenney calls Christian just as he's walking into the apartment. About 10 minutes later, Clenney calls her mom. That call lasts for just about 6 minutes until she calls her again at 4:49. The state attorney's office believes Clenney's mother may have been on the phone when the stabbing happened. At 4:57, Clenney called 911.
On that 911 call, Christian can be heard in the background repeatedly saying that he was dying. Defendant Clenney is also heard saying, "I'm so sorry, baby."
While Courtney was on the phone with 911, Toby could be heard in the background saying that he was losing feeling in his arm and that he might be dying. To which Courtney would reply, "I'm so sorry, baby," before disconnecting the call. Minutes later, police arrived at Courtney's apartment and discovered a body and a gruesome scene. Toby lay on the ground, gray and lifeless, and bleeding. Courtney knelt beside him wearing just a bra and sweatpants covered in blood from head to toe. She was surprisingly calm given the shocking situation, but police assumed it was due to shock. While paramedics worked quickly to get Toby to a hospital in a desperate attempt to save his life, Courtney was moved out to the balcony so a scene examination could begin. She was seen sitting and kissing and snuggling with her dogs while police processed the apartment. Police later joined Courtney on the balcony to ask exactly how Toby came to be stabbed and left fighting for his life. Courtney claimed that Toby had become violent with her, screaming, yelling, and attacking her. In fear for her safety, she had picked up a knife from the kitchen and had thrown it at him in an attempt to ward off his attacks. She claimed the knife had struck him in the chest and that she had called 911 immediately when she realized he was bleeding. She hadn't meant for it to happen, but she said she had no choice. Toby had begun choking her, and throwing the knife was her only means of defense. Courtney arranged for her lawyer to meet her at the police station, where she went voluntarily with the police to make a formal statement claiming self-defense. While Courtney assisted police by answering their questions, Toby had arrived at Jackson Memorial Hospital, but sadly, despite desperate attempts to save his life, he was pronounced dead soon after arriving. As Courtney continued with her statement, officers saw that she was very distraught by everything that had happened, and they began to fear that she might be at risk of hurting herself. So she was admitted voluntarily to a psychiatric ward. After taking Courtney's statement, police reviewed their records and saw the number of times they had responded to the apartment just recently for noise complaints and domestic disturbances. And this clued police into the story of Courtney and Toby being involved in an abusive and toxic relationship, and this had just been the unfortunate and tragic result. Within just 24 hours of investigation, Toby's death was ruled as a domestic incident and the case would be closed. Courtney was discharged from the psychiatric unit within 48 hours and was freed without charges, able to return home without further consequence.
I'll videotape her. Right now, you should go. Yeah, you should go. Because you just killed your boyfriend. Yeah, you did. Yeah, and yeah. Yeah, okay, cool.
Meanwhile, Toby's family were devastated by the death of their loved one, and they found it difficult to come to terms with his death. Their kind and loving son and brother had been stabbed just days before his 28th birthday, and now the person whom they believed was responsible for his murder was free to go back to her normal life. They found it impossible to believe that Courtney was simply defending herself from violent attacks. They knew the kind nature of Toby and had become familiar with the abusive and often violent nature of Courtney. The turbulent nature of their relationship made it hard to believe that Toby had attacked and choked a person that he loved and cared so deeply for. They were convinced that rather it was Courtney who was to blame for the violent and untimely death of their loved one. But in spite of the family's insistence, the police persisted in their determination that they believe Courtney's claim that she was defending herself from an act of domestic violence when she stabbed Toby. Courtney had retained a lawyer who convinced police that Toby was the aggressor in their relationship and that Courtney had suffered at his hands for some time. They cited the many 911 calls and police visits as evidence that Courtney was a victim, and that Toby's stabbing was a tragic but justified outcome of his abuse towards her. While Toby's family continued to believe in his innocence, because of a lack of voice, it was difficult to prove that Toby had indeed suffered at the hands of Courtney rather than the other way around. Despite the odds being stacked against them, Toby's family hired a lawyer and began digging into everything they could find out about Courtney's past. Soon, it became clear that this wasn't the first domestic violence incident that Courtney had been involved in. There were whispered reports of Courtney attempting to stab a previous boyfriend and claims that she was responsible for breaking the jaw of a bodybuilder, Sean Roden, in 2017. There was also a domestic battery charge on record from July of 2021 after Courtney attacked Toby in a hotel room in Las Vegas. In this incident, she had thrown a glass at Toby's head. Though it narrowly missed him and Toby was uninjured, Courtney still was arrested and charged in that incident. All of this, along with her arrests for driving under the influence, built a disturbing image of Courtney, showing her volatile nature and predisposition towards violence. Eventually, at the insistence of Toby's family and their lawyer, police were convinced to reopen the investigation into Toby's death. Phone records would reveal that Courtney had 2 phone calls with her mother close to the time in which Toby had been stabbed. In interviews with Courtney's mother, she revealed that she had heard Courtney yelling at Toby, saying that he was a liar and ordering him to leave the apartment. Based on the time of Courtney's 911 call, police believe Toby was stabbed roughly 13 minutes before Courtney had called for help. Phone records also revealed that 30 minutes after Courtney's 911 call, her mother texted her to advise her not to speak with police without an attorney present and to make sure that she mentioned self-defense. As for Courtney's claims that she threw the knife across the room in an attempt to escape Toby's attack, the medical examiner determined that a throw from that distance would not have caused a wound like the one that killed Toby. The angle of Toby's injury showed a stabbing with a downward thrust from the blade into his chest where it pierced a major artery. This wound could only have occurred from a very close-range attack. To add further doubts to the claim that Toby was attacking and choking her when she stabbed him, there were no signs of defensive marks on Courtney's body. The blood was found throughout the apartment, including 2 large pools which had formed around Toby's body. This indicated that a significant period of time had passed before police and paramedics arrived, confirming police suspicions that Courtney had waited for some time after the attack before calling for help. This CCTV footage was released to the public of an incident between Toby and Courtney in an elevator at their apartment building. It shows Courtney getting into the elevator and aggressively pushing the floor selection buttons. Toby enters soon after and appears to try to stop her from hitting the buttons so hard. Courtney turns toward Toby and hits him multiple times in response to his attempts to calm her down. He blocks the punches by putting his arms up over his head, and despite there being no audio, you can see that they are arguing with each other. Courtney continues to hit Toby and pulls at his hair and clothing. Toby pushed Courtney away and exited the elevator. It would take 4 months of relentless pressure of Toby's family before police would formally charge Courtney with murder. But their efforts would prove fruitful, as on the 11th of August 2022, while in a rehabilitation center in Hawaii, Courtney was arrested and charged with second-degree murder of Toby. Courtney was in Hawaii receiving treatment for substance abuse and post-traumatic stress disorder at the time of her arrest. The following day, she attended a hearing where she agreed to be extradited from Hawaii to face the second-degree murder charges in Florida, where the incident had occurred. She remains in custody at the Hawaii Community Correctional Center on the Big Island until her extradition is arranged.
The defendant had a history of being the aggressor throughout the relationship.
According to this arrest warrant, One Parisio Security documented so many incidents of arguing, including complaints from tenants 2 floors above, that the building's management was moving towards legal action to evict the couple.
Investigators held a news conference, and the Miami-Dade County State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle publicly released Courtney's arrest warrant. Rundle said that evidence received by police depicted Toby as the aggressor, and that police now believe that she did not act in self-defense. They added that their investigation concluded that Toby was unarmed during the fight and that he was in fact the victim of domestic violence. Courtney had been free during the months between Toby's murder and her arrest. It appeared that she had continued on with her life as if nothing happened. Video emerged of her at a bar just days after his death, only leaving when a member of the public yelled at her for murdering her boyfriend. Nothing had been uploaded on her Instagram or OnlyFans page since 3 days before Toby's murder. Courtney's defense lawyer said the medical examiner's opinions will not stand up to specific scientific scrutiny in court, and that their plan is to argue self-defense at the impending trial. While he agreed that Toby and Courtney's relationship was tumultuous, he claimed that Courtney was the victim and that Toby was the primary aggressor. Given Courtney is still in custody and has not been extradited yet, there is undoubtedly a lot more information that will be revealed during the trial. We would like to hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments section regarding what you think happened on that dark, fateful day. Did Courtney act in self-defense against an abusive lover seeking to harm her? Or is Courtney harboring the dark secret that she indeed murdered her lover in a violent outburst of anger? Why would the police wait 4 months before charging Courtney? Is it possible that they were a little too quick to believe her story? Until we discover more information about this case in the upcoming trial, this is where our story will end for now.